my name is Lindsay Laidman, and I'm the principal at Glenn Arbour Academy, a small private school located in Burlington, Ontario. We have about 100 students. We run an academic program from kindergarten through to grade 8. Our class sizes are capped at 15 per class cohort, and we have lots of enhanced health and safety measures in place to ensure a safe learning environment for all, still with that academic individualized focus. So joining me tonight are two families of current students that are enrolled in our program. Andrew and Anupa King have a son who's in our SK program, and Katie Van Den Bosch has a son who's enrolled in our grade 7 program. Both are active in our Parent-Teacher Association as well, so looking to contribute and have an active role in their child's education that way as well. So we have a series of questions that we're going to review today with our panelists. About their experiences with Glenn Arbour, about what they have to say, what their kids have to say, and hope to shed some light on what we have to offer as a private school, and hope to address kind of any questions that future prospective families would have as well. So I can begin with our first kind of discussion to kick things off. In terms of choosing schools, this is a huge decision for prospective parents and for new families. Finding that school that is the right fit for their child. So we're posing this question to the panelists. Why did you choose Glenn Arbour originally? And in what ways is the school what you expected it would be? In what ways is it different from what you expected? What's your experience been in that kind of selection process? So we can start with you, Katie, and then we can go to Andrew and Anupa.
Sure. So why I selected Glenn Arbour, or why my husband and I selected Glenn Arbour. Our son Jackson was in grade 3 at the time and was struggling with school, and he had just had a psych assessment done, and we had kind of suspected he had some learning disabilities, but that was the indication of that someone else agreed that he did have some learning disabilities, and we felt at that time that we really needed to make a change. We were in a public school and he was getting lost in the numbers. It was a class size of, I can't remember the time, high 20s, and he was really prone to distractions, and what we found he needed, or what we'd told the teachers he needed, was some quiet space to work. So their solution was to put him in the hall on the floor to do his work. And at the time, a 7-year-old is going to doodle and play with his pencil and do everything else except get his actual work done. So we knew we had to make a change. I had never actually considered private school. I had always, I guess in my mind, thought it was for the kids that did really well in school, or that it was really strong, I needed strong academics to go to the school. And somebody had recommended that we check out Glenn Arbour. And so we went for a tour and made some inquiries and found out that the first thing that really sold us was the class sizes are capped. At the time it was 16, now 15. And that in itself just allowed some more one-on-one time with the kids and some teaching, which is what our son really needed. And then just that quiet space to be with minimal distractions. So we found that was our big item. And yeah, so we had kind of sold our son on it as let's just try it for a year. We'll go for a year and see if we like it. And we found by the end of the first year, he was like, okay, let's try it for one more year again. But after that, maybe we'll change schools again. So that was good. Do we go into why my expectations?
Sure. Yeah, sure. It kind of connects. You've sort of answered the question that way as well, in terms of how the school kind of met or exceeded expectations that you might have had going into. It sounds like your son was more of kind of a let's try and see phase, but
Right.
quickly kind of recognized his integration and his happiness at the school.
Right. Okay. So we found that, based on our tour and our discussions, I had thought that, or I understood that the teachers were going to take time with him and he's going to get a little more one-on-one time, a little bit more teaching. So that part was kind of expected, and that happened. But what I didn't expect was that the teachers were then going to take some of their personal time before school, after school, during recesses to really work with him. There were some concepts and some subjects that he was really struggling with, and that time was taken. You can see that the teachers really cared about their success, his success in particular, all the students, but they were really good at helping him transition to the school and integrate into the classroom. The other item was catch up. So I found that we were really worried because he was really far behind in his reading, writing, and spelling. And if you put him in grade 4 at the time and gave him a grade 4 spelling test, he was gonna fail. He probably wouldn't get one question right, a word right. So the school was quick to accommodate him and say, that's fine. If he can't do grade 4, let's do grade 3. And let's just cut the list back a bit. Let's work on building his confidence first, make sure he can actually do the work, and then increase the expectations or the requirements. So then it grows, the expectations grow along with his confidence that grows. And that was a huge help for him. And finally, communication was a big one. I think in the public system, I don't know if even his current teacher knew that I was his mom. And at Glenn Arbour, I find that majority of the teachers, even the ones he's never had before, know that I'm his mom. And so the communication is great. You have access to the teachers. They want to communicate with you. They want to keep you in the loop. They want you to know what's happening. They set out the weekly schedule for you, homework expectations, and then when and if there's challenges along the way, they're quick to engage you and communicate with you daily. And prior to COVID, you would have access to be able to speak to them on the playground every day if you wanted. And so that change in communication alone was huge for us in helping our son, be successful in moving into the school. So.
That's great. Thank you for your detailed and thoughtful answer.
Thanks.
Anoop and Andrew, I'll turn it around to you.
Yeah, so when we started looking into schools for Mikey, he was about 3. We figured we there's this hype about getting an early start and figuring things out before he's 4 and what we're going to do. We had gone to quite a few schools. We had done both public and private schools. And then I think I lost track of what number we were on when we finally came to Glenn Arbour, and we walked through the school, and I was talking to Andy about this last night because I don't think he quite remembered. I walked through the school with Mikey and Andy in front of me, and it wasn't just, I was right off the bat completely impressed. I was comparing it to everything else that we had seen prior to coming here, and so I looked at Mikey and then I looked at Andy, and while I was really entertained with Mikey being so excited where he was, Andy was reliving this memory of himself in the school that he went to as a kid and all the opportunities that he was exposed to. And so that alone, just my heart was just like, oh my God, like I don't even think I had a say at this moment, while I know, like, this was it. It was nice to see. We had finally gotten to a school where it was an instant reaction from everybody in the family that this was it. And then, so we went through the school, Andy was, of course, going through every single thing he saw on the wall and the classrooms, and oh my God, this brings me back to all these memories kept coming up. But I think the thing that really did it for us was we were in your office, Lindsay, we were sitting down, and I think your desk is a whiteboard. And so I remember you handing Mikey some crayons, and it was nice just to, because every time we had gone to a school, I would look at the interaction that he had with whatever was in the class or whoever he was talking to other than us. And you had given him a box of markers, and he just started, he was just like, what? Oh, I could just, like, right here? Like, I can just do whatever? And we were talking, and I looked at him, and he was, for the first time, he was terrified. He was always terrified, and for the first time he wasn't. He was calm, he was quiet, he was loving everything about him, he was everything around him, he was taking it all in. And then we had wrapped up, we walked out the door. The second we got out of the door, we both looked down at him, and before we could actually say anything, he looked up at us and said, "Can this please be my school?" And we were like, it was a done deal. It was, mind you, we had even started him prior to Glenn Arbour. He had started a Montessori, and within, I think, he lasted 3 weeks.
It was a train wreck.
It was an absolute,
So bad.
it was,
So,
we're not going to even go down.
yes.
So yeah, so that was how, you know, that's how picking Glenn Arbour happened for us. It was a combination of, you know, Andy and him, especially him, and the fact that he asked out loud, can this be my school? That was the biggest, yeah.
Yeah, and I went to private school growing up, and so there were a lot of parallels. Like my class size was very small, right? So I had a lot of attention, and yeah, there were just a lot of parallels right out of the gate. And plus, we were I forget his name, but the president of the student body led us around.
Darcy.
Yeah, led us around.
Excellent, yeah.
And he was like, what's that? Yeah, I offered him a job.
Yeah, we were really impressed.
When he graduated, like many years ago.
Yes.
But yeah, no.
But yeah, they've been emailing.
Yeah, we were emailing. But yeah, no, he was amazing, right? And it was like enthusiasm over the top, and it was genuine, and yeah, it was like an instant fit actually. It just sort of felt good, so it was an easy decision.
Yeah, and then just to piggyback off what Katie said too, the fact that I mean, I don't have any experience with the public school communication, but the fact that I can, throughout all of JK and even now all of so far of SK, I can send an email about the littlest thing, and a response is almost immediate, if anything. And so there's never this wait to know, like, oh, what's happening, or, you know, we're not in the know, we don't know what's going on. Like, I'd really like to just be in touch with somebody and figure things out. That's not the case at all. Like, there's just this, it's peaceful, it's nice, and it's calming to know that, you know, if I ever need to know anything or how today was, today we were in the car coming home, and I talked about show and tell, and he was so excited about something else that he couldn't quite remember what happened at show and tell. And so I was really interested to know if he like really got up and talk about show and tell, because sometimes he gets very shy. And so I sent a quick email tonight to his teacher, and within seconds I was like, oh my God, he did such a great job. He got up and he talked about his space shuttle Lego that he had built, and I'm like, okay, good, we're fine. Right? So it's nice that I can have that kind of comfort knowing that engagement, it's refreshing that we have that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's my advice or guidance to prospective families too, is that choosing a school has to be the right fit instinctively. Like it needs to feel good. It needs to sit well. And I think when, parents walk through our school hallways, although we're not able to do that right now because of COVID, you can feel it. It permeates in the classrooms and during tours when students are happily greeting others, and we're all a big community. And I think that family feel really comes across really well. Now we're looking at different ways to continue to foster that sense of community, doing that virtually, making sure we're all still connected, just in a different way. But it does have to feel right for parents. Absolutely. That's such a huge component of, the school selection process.
Well, yeah, as Lindsay, you've noticed every morning, right? When I drop Mikey off, he ignores me and runs in, never says goodbye.
Never get a
hug. You don't even get a wave.
In the door.
Yeah.
But you talk about that sort of family atmosphere. One thing I said this to you yesterday, right? So one thing is ironically you, Lindsay, and I pick up on the fact that number one, at least while I'm there for a few seconds, every single child's name. And
even though they've got a mask on.
Yeah, so they have a mask on. I don't even know if I'm looking at my own child half the time. And so the child's name, but you actually know the parents' names. And there's like hundreds of people going in that door in the morning. You're there every day. And I said to her yesterday when she'd send me questions, I'm like, how does Lindsay do that? Like, that's crazy. And everybody's got masks on.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Sometimes it's hard to maintain conversations sometimes because it gets really busy. So I feel bad because they're not extended conversations or, as much of the rapport as we used to be able to have. Yeah. But yeah, certainly the relationships are important. And for a lot of families, I'm the first point of contact. So that's how I feel with all of the families and all of the kids. I don't have kids of my own, but at Glenn Arbour, I feel this huge sense of family and responsibility for all of these little people and their families, you know, that we're doing them a great service every day, and they're having positive days and going home excited about their learning and excited to share, you know, whatever piece of news or information, you know, happened that day. So that's a huge perspective too.
Well, plus too, and not just yourself, but the first couple weeks when he started school, he'd come home and he'd be like, I met a new friend today. And I didn't quite understand or grasp what it meant, but everybody knew his name. And so it was instantly, he just had like, his posture would change, and he'd be like, he was so confident already. He knows my name. I'm his friend. I got this.
But now he's got a guy. It's this guy.
He's got dudes, he's got buddies.
His dude,
and
Adam.
So no matter which classroom he walks by, everybody will like peep in. Every teacher knows, hey Mikey, how's it going? And it just, you could tell how he takes that, and he sucks it in, and it just automatically boosts confidence in him.
Yeah.
Like, I've got this, like, okay, it's gonna be a good day, like, right? It's unreal to just watch.
That's awesome. And that kind of segues into the next question about the impact that the school has had on your kids, and kind of a parallel that both of you are discussing in your experiences with your kids is this growth of confidence, or this growth of, you know, belief in themselves. And that's our tagline, right? Where, you know, we believe in the abilities and skills of everybody. We can make a difference. So if you want to speak to that too, in terms of, you know, how that impact has shaped your child, or how you've kind of seen changes in them throughout their kind of engagement with the program. Katie, do you want to jump in too?
Sure. And I think you'd already commented on this part, but the confidence is really the number one, the biggest change that we've seen in our son. Back when he was in grade 3 to 1, even in public school, I didn't think these words were even his vocabulary, but he would come home and say, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I don't get this, I don't belong in this class, everyone's smarter than me. And I would sit there and try and hold back tears and try and coach him through it. But then I'd worry every day when he was at school, because he was just in this cycle of beating himself up, so to speak. And so when he came to Glenn Arbour, he still had some of that, and we had to kind of break that down and rebuild his confidence. And some of that was done by dropping the level of work required and making it easier for him. So then he had faith in himself and confidence, and he could move forward and know that he could do it. And now he gets in the car and he's super excited because he, you know, got an A or a B on a test, or because he actually finished all his work in school and doesn't have to bring his work home and doesn't have any homework to do. So his mindset has really shifted from this, I can't do that, and I'm not even trying, to, oh, I can do that, that's no problem. And so it's been huge, just not even just with schoolwork, but just in his approach on things in life. It's really shaped him differently, which has been great.
And notably now too, Katie, right, being off, you know, not feeling well, he's anxious to return, which
right, I was going to mention
thrilled
that.
about.
He's been very upset. So this week he woke with a little bit of a sore throat on Tuesday, and I was like, oh, you're going to have to stay home, and you're going to have to stay home tomorrow because you don't feel good today. He was like, what? That's not fair. And I want to be at school. I thought, oh my gosh, what happened to my kid? He never wanted to go to school before.
That's huge.
That's great.
Yeah, if you guys want to jump into Anupa and Andy.
Yeah, it's interesting because prior to him starting Glenn Arbour, it was always me asking the questions and figuring out how I can get more information out of him. Like, instead of saying, you know, how was school today, I'd say something like, tell me something that really made you laugh. And then that's how I'd get him to like start talking. Like, there was never any way for me, because if I just say how was school today, he'd just be good and he'd be done. Now I get in the car and I'm like, Mikey, just maybe just tone it down a little, okay? Like, and then we get home and we're through the door and we're in Bath, and he will never stop. And it's just, and I never even ever have to ask the question now about how did it go today. I know about who made a mess or who didn't make a mess, or who had a really cool thing to say today, or you know, what did we do today? Oh my God, we made a turkey. You wouldn't believe this. Or guess what? We made like I can talk to you on a telephone, but it's through a cup and it's
Oh,
a
the cup with the
string.
string thing.
And
yeah.
so, you know what I mean? And before I could even like ask these questions about how was science or how was math,
Oh, geez.
he gets in the car and it's instant before he even like sits down. Yesterday he wrote a poem about Levi. I don't know if you got to see the poem. Levi got soap in his eyes on the weekend, and the poem was about Levi and soap in his eyes, but his name is Levi, his name isn't Fred. And before I even got in the car, he's like telling me about this poem. He was so excited about this poem he wrote. And so the whole ride home, it was about, you've got to see it. It's amazing. You've got to see this poem I wrote. And so it's, this morning I walked into the bedroom with you guys. He was waking up.
Oh.
And he asked, it's the
earthquakes and volcanoes and like all these questions. Like, where are you getting all these questions? I want to talk about it at school.
Yeah, right.
He popped awake and started asking about earthquakes and volcanoes. I'm like, what?
So his mind is just, yeah, exactly. His mind is just, it's constantly going. And that was the biggest thing that has happened since he started. It's just, and it's out of the blue, the questions. Like you said, haven't had a coffee yet, and he'll be asking about, well, how eggs are made, or why do you crack them, and why do you throw this part away? Like, what's wrong with that part? Why can't we eat that part too? And so, right? It's just, the line is just constant.
Well, like I said, last year when he started JK, I had emailed Miss Blanken, his teacher, one day. And like, it was remarkable to me how much he grew up from September just to October, right? And he was dying for more stimulation than we could possibly give him intellectually at home. And he was like a sponge. I mean, it was amazing to see what happened. And then we were worried too, because going back after, I guess, March to June, like, you know, we did our best, but like it couldn't compare. And you know, homeschooling and all that. And also, you know, we were comparing notes with parents who had kids in public school from an experience standpoint. And I'm like, man, I got to go in every morning and print out his homework. And then Anupa's got to go do it all with him and sit him down. It's like this daily thing. And they're like, he has homework? Like, daily? Like, we haven't even talked to the teacher in a month. Like, what do you, like, no, he talks to her like every day. And he's in JK? Like, so it was like a complete, and I think that's where, to be honest, like, we saw the growth, we saw, you know, the changes in him, but we didn't see, I wasn't aware really of the dramatic difference between the educational approach at Glenn Arbour versus what, quite frankly, a lot of my friends and business associates and her cousin, her daughter goes to public school. I mean, it was like night and day.
It was,
and so, to your point, Lindsay, from earlier, you know, I know a lot of parents that are looking at private school for the first time that never considered it before. Basically, you know, the notion of the just completely different experience that even we had during the isolation time, you know, last school year. So, and even then, you know, we still felt that Mikey was behind where he would have been having that in-person experience, but it was still like far and away beyond what was going on in the public schools. So that was a huge thing.
He also did have a cough last week, and he was really upset that he couldn't come to school with a cough. He was really
And it's like, I'm thrilled that they want to be at school, you know? These are the concerns that they have. Like, I want to be at school. We're coming off a period of 6 months of not being in school. So just that they're happy and excited. And that COVID isolation period was brutal. It was very difficult and challenging for everybody. You know, there was lots happening, lots of uncertainty, but our staff pivoted and, you know, had it all going, and the virtual chats and the synchronous learning and the interactive, and they learned an entire Google Classroom platform almost instantaneously. So, you know, it really, we came together when we needed to. And I always say that those times, those tough times, really teach a lot about who you are and who you work with and what you value. You know, and it took that, you know, awful situation all of us to go through, but we really bonded together as a staff, as a school community, you know, during all these hard times, still being able to interact and see each other, be it through a lesson or virtually at recess or an activity. You know, Miss Blanken had all the kiddies dress up in superhero costumes for their morning circle virtually.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of things fun and exciting for them, and just adding that little bit of, you know, joy to the day. In that seemingly like black hole of never ending, you know, we don't know where it's going and what the future entails. So a very difficult period, but I mean, I think we all came out on top for sure, and our kids, you know, are in a better position as a result of having that ongoing support. So in the words of your child, a famous quote from your child, and I know Kindy has lots of these, what are your kids saying about the school? What is their, in their own words, kind of a quote or something you'd like to share about their thoughts about the school?
I can start. So I spoke with my son Jackson before this call to ask him, because I told him I need to share his thoughts and or what should I share. And he's a little bit practical like his mom, but he wanted to make sure that people knew that the class sizes are small, and honestly this didn't come from me, and that you get lots of one-on-one help and that everyone's really nice. But he wanted to make sure I warned everyone that there's lots of homework.
Yeah. Right?
Well, I do most of the homework now, so
Without killing him.
That's a bonus.
One of the older grades told the teacher, you know, I didn't know how COVID would be coming back to school in COVID. I kind of thought it'd be like jail, but this isn't so bad. I actually kind of in an older grade, like, thought this would be like jail, but it's not. So I'm good with it.
yeah.
The darndest things. I'm sure Mikey has lots to say as well.
Oh, he does. But I think too with Mikey, it's the little actions that I pick up on that really says more. And so in our pantry, we've got, it's sort of like a mood board. And so we will document every year, every school year, we'll document what we're doing. And so we'll take a Polaroid picture of everybody in the household start of the school year. And over the holidays, well, over the summer, Miss Blanken had sent a picture of herself to Mikey, and it was every month he was getting mail from her, and he was reading these really cute letters and getting pictures. And so one morning I opened the door and I looked at the board, and beside everybody in the house Polaroid, he had took a tack and he had stuck Miss Blanken right next to everybody else. And so I opened the door and I stood there and I was just like, I'm like, what? And so I was like, yeah, you know, that's home, school's home. And I spent a lot of time there, and I spent a lot of time at home, but you know, I think that's home too. And so it was interesting to see a 5-year-old and how he grasped that, right? Like, he's spending all this time at school, which really is another home. And so his teacher is family. And so for me, that was, am I gonna cry?
Yeah, control yourself, please.
Yeah, and so, you know, other than the fact that not saying goodbye or hugs and stuff anymore when he gets to the door
every day,
he's more energized, he's excited. He, you know, Saturday morning sometimes he'll wake up and be like, okay, is it school? I'm like, no, it's the weekend, like, come on, you know, like, let's sleep in Saturday and Sunday. It's like, no, I gotta go to school. And so even on days when he doesn't have to be there, but no, everything about him is, he's just, you can tell the way, like, I take pictures of him very frequently in his uniform, and so you can see how the confidence and just the posture and the way he like looks at you, how it's just all changed, and he's just all, his entire being is completely different.
Yeah, when he was out the other day out of school because he was sick, he says, I wonder what my dude's doing.
My dude.
I was like, I don't know, man. Like, he's in class. I wonder what they're doing today.
Yeah. And he actually, I was looking, they had done an experiment with an apple. And I accidentally showed it to him and said, "Oh my God, you guys did this in class?" And he's like, "What? We did?" And so I emailed his teacher right away and I said, "Can you just send me the instructions? I need to do this with him right now at home because he's having the hardest time because he's not there doing it with you." Right? Yeah.
Well, that home comment is so moving. And I think that connects to kind of the last question that we'll explore here about values of the school and how you kind of see the school representing certain values. I think of that notion of home and family as a value that certainly we make kind of concentrated efforts to model for kids and to share with others, and to demonstrate that within our staff and how we treat one another, how we treat kids. I think students are really intuitive, and I think that they pick up on energies and on communication that's both verbal and nonverbal. And you know, as a staff and as a community, we're very cognizant all the time of, you know, how we treat one another. A supply teacher just the other day who's been in for me was saying, like, everyone here is so kind. She says all of the students are so kind to each other, and she says there's not any conflicts that I see. You know, as other schools or bigger classrooms where there can be some student conflict and exclusion, she says everybody accepts everybody. And, you know, if somebody isn't having a good day or if somebody needs an encouraging comment, they're always able to count on others in their class and in their community at school to do that for them. So in my view, that kind of speaks to that value. So your insights too, you know, if you want to jump in about how you kind of see that or experience that from your child's experience and from your own experience at the school too. Katie, if you wanted to start.
Mm-hmm. Inclusion is right up there, along with respect and caring. The classes they really form a bond that's hard to even explain. I can remember I think it was the end of the first year that he had finished in grade 4. And I was picking him up on the last day of school, and I couldn't get him away from his peers because they were in this massive group hug of 12 of them, and they wouldn't let go of each other in the classroom. They were like, "No, we can't leave each other in summer. We're not going to see each other for 8 weeks." And some of them were crying, and they were really upset. They just developed this bond that's unreal. And even this week, with my son being off, every night I come home, I'm like, "Who are you talking to now?" "Oh, I'm talking to so-and-so from school." "Oh, I'm talking to so-and-so." Like every night, it's somebody different from the class, and they're chatting. "Oh, how's Jackson feeling? Is he feeling better?" Or some of the moms are texting me, "Is he doing okay?" And so it's really nice to see that everybody really cares and also really and includes everybody. Nobody's left out. There's no kind of oddball or, you know, we don't talk to him or don't talk to her. Everybody talks to everybody. And prior to COVID, amongst all grades, like we found it was really nice when we could come into the school and come to the opening assembly where everybody was welcome, all the parents and siblings if they were from another school or little ones, and watch the kids be together and run the assembly and hold the announcements. They were the ones, it was the kids speaking, able to be in this leadership position in front of their peers and gain their respect and their support in that setting. And then also for us to be able to see, oh, that's who that parent is, and be able to communicate with each other and share stories and information. And it just really created that community, that family feeling with the school. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else to say. The care for each other is unreal. It's great to see.
Mm-hmm. That is.
Well, yeah, and I remember in the beginning, you know, as a parent, I always worry about bullying.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, you know, seeing the bead program when we took that tour, and then, you know, now it being sort of utilized with even Mikey, right, and rewarding good behavior and things like that. And you know, to your point, Katie, it's a very inclusive environment.
Mm-hmm.
And now I find myself worrying about after 8th grade,
Mm-hmm.
what the hell we're going to do. Pardon my French. But anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's we've been very happy.
Yeah. Well, there's the work hard, but there's also such fun activities that you put together. last year he went to a pumpkin farm, and so I know we're going to be recreating something very similar in the schoolyard. And then, you know, with Halloween, you guys are, I love that you haven't eliminated that kind of stuff, and you're still going to try and make it work. However, you know, however much fun you could just put into making it still safe, just still have it there. And I think he looks forward to that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, the trips, all the field trips, even, I mean, and I have to say too, during homeschooling, we did do a few field trips. We did, we were at a farm we did a virtual farm tour, and that was like that kind of stuff. And we did the zoo tour. That was really, like, he really looks forward to that kind of stuff, because it's like, oh my goodness. I remember when I was in school and they say, oh, you're going to get on a bus and you're going on a trip. And I'll be like, I remember not being able to sleep the night before. And it's the same. He's got the same excitement. Like, oh my goodness, we're going to a bus and we're going to go somewhere, right? Like, so it's nice to see him be excited for stuff like that, and not just the excitement in classroom, but yeah. And even with when we were doing the online, it was always, is my buddy there? Is Ben on? Do you see Ben? Can you make him bigger? Okay, that's great. I can't see her. What's she doing? Does she have a dog? Does Riley? And so it was always this excitement to seeing everybody, and it was nice. To him, it was like entertaining to see everybody in their own little house and their kitchen, and somebody's growing a sunflower. And so to him, that was just, I mean, while it wasn't necessarily what we expected it to be, it was still this way of him belonging and feeling belonged, right? Like he was with his friends and they all really connect. Today he came home and he said, you know, Ben really loved that Toy Story movie. We're gonna have to sit and watch it so I can talk to Ben about it, right? Like, and it was just a random conversation, like, and that it's so fun to see that with him.
The connection, right?
Yeah.
A place where they can belong, where they're recognized by their peers, where they're celebrated by their teachers, and that kind of nurturing that inquisitiveness, you know, so at a young age, you know, that he's able to really celebrate that, and we're able to focus in on that and build the confidence, you know, with someone like Jackson joining us later in his school career, reversing those entrenched kind of beliefs of that negative self-talk and unspiraling that, unpacking that. You know, his grade 4 teacher, Mr. Fritz, was a huge impact for him. You know, that buddy bond that they had, you know, but one where he still had his expectations, and, you know, he did what was asked of him and he succeeded. And those teacher relationships really to the kids in kindergarten as well, you know, they sometimes slip and call them mom, like Mikey says, it's home, right? Like that's how much time they spend together. But
he doesn't call me Mr. Fritz. No.
I get called Miss Blanket all the time. Yes, but Miss Blanket tells me she gets called mom too. So.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us on this panel. This has been heartwarming, and I'm just delighted to learn about your experiences and to hear these perspectives and these stories that I wasn't always aware of that had happened. So it's just incredible to learn about, you know, through their eyes, through your eyes. And I think what you've had to share tonight will be really valuable, and hopefully, you know, inspire some prospective families that are looking at Glenn Arbour, and you know, hopefully lead to some more great conversations. So thank you so much for your time, for your thoughtful answers, for your commitment, for taking time to do this. It's really appreciated. My heart's full. I'm so glad that you're having a great experience, and I hope to continue it.